Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, you have once again entered a world of survival horror. Good luck. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, joined as always by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. Mark, how's it going?
Me? I'm doing well.
There we go. There we go. First success of the year. It is late 2017, and we are just getting to our first success.
Mark it off your NCS bingo card.
Mark finally said that he's doing well instead of doing good. I stumbled for a second over what year it was. I said, we're just getting to the end of 2017. Wasn't fully convinced that's the year we're still in. And yet here we are. Mark, doing well.
Doing well.
Mm-hmm.
Excited for tonight. We're going to be talking about a series that's near and dear to both of our hearts.
But which had two entries in it that we have had never played before.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'm a little bit... So, Resident Evil. We're talking about Resident Evil.
Yeah, there's no reason to be cagey about it.
No. We're talking about Resident Evil. And it's a series I love. I've kind of fallen behind, though.
Like, yeah, I would. Yeah, but same.
Haven't played 7. Had never played these Revelations game before.
I've never played 6.
Yeah, I've never really played 6 either.
I never finished 5.
Oh, I did finish 5.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, so you're familiar with Punching the Boulder? You just don't understand it in context? Have you seen like the like GIFs or like the memes or anything?
Why don't you tell me about Punching the Boulder?
Well, I mean, so at the end of Resident Evil 5, you have to punch an enormous boulder.
Wait, why?
Yeah, well, you know, who could explain the mysterious ways that Resident Evil works?
That's a great point. But so we are going to be talking about Resident Evil Revelations 1 and 2 on the Nintendo Switch. But first, we just want to check in on the Sonic Forces borrowing program. If you are interested in borrowing my copy of Sonic Forces on Switch, you are welcome to do it. Just send me an email with your address and I will send it to you when it comes to me. When it comes back to me. It is already out in the wild. It is on a bogus journey. Oh, that was embarrassing.
So no promises as to when you will receive it.
Right. Also, I assume someone will rip me off at some point. And Sonic Forces won't make its way back. I'm hoping it does at least once.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Also, maybe a Steam account is being set up.
Look, which we don't fully endorse.
Or really understand.
No. But it does sound cool. So yes, if you're interested in that, you can email your address to Nintendo Cartridge Society
at gmail.com.
Or you can use that email address for any questions or comments you have. We're going to be talking about Resident Evil Revelations 1 and 2. Would love to hear your experiences with that game. Also hit us up on Twitter at NinCart Society and on the Facebook page, which is just Nintendo Cartridge Society. But Mark, let's get into the conversation about these games. All right, so it's a little tough. 2 games dropped at once, right? And they've been out for a little over a week at this point. So you picked up Resident Evil Revelations 1.
Mm-hmm.
I picked up the collection that had both, so I could play 2. Because at first, my first thought was like, yeah, I will also play Resident Evil Revelations 1. But then I was like, it's not really how video games work. Like, for the most part, the sequel is going to be better than the original. You know, it's not a movie, it's not a book series or whatever. Games get better as they progress. So I skipped right to 2.
Well, especially because are the games related at all? Like, when does oh my gosh, this is going to be problematic. When does Resident Evil Revelations 2 take place in the series canon?
Late.
So
in series canon.
The first one takes place between 4 and 5.
Okay, I believe this must take place. So this takes place at least after 5.
Okay.
Because they make reference to the disease, the Ouroboros disease from 5. or virus disease. I don't know. So yeah, maybe I mean they're connected in that they're in the same universe, right? What so lay it out for me what the first Resident Evil Revelations is about. Like what's the hook of this game? It takes place between 4 and 5. Like what is it?
Oh man, I don't even know that I can fully explain this to you. Mostly because I don't really understand it.
Right.
It jumps around in time. It's like you're at one point in time, and then here's some characters from like earlier in time.
Well,
Why we did it this way, I couldn't tell you.
so who are your
Oh, okay.
protagonists?
So you play initially.
So spoon feed me everything.
Yeah,
I
okay.
don't know.
So you play initially as
Mhm.
Jill Valentine
Great.
and Parker Luciani.
Posey? Okay, so Jill Valentine, obviously one of the two main protagonists from Resident Evil, the original. Also in Resident Evil 3, she's a protagonist there. Is that it? Does Jill then go away?
She's
She's
probably
in 6, I think. I think
Yeah.
everyone's in 6.
Yeah.
Um, so okay, and then Parker Luciani or whatever you said, is that a new character for this game, or is that we're not sure?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't have any memory of him previously.
Oh, he's a dude. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he seems to be a thing because they don't explain where he came from or why he exists.
Okay, well, let me address that briefly because there is a little bit in Revelations 2 where they encounter characters that I believe are new to the game, that our characters are just like, oh, hey, Pedro or whatever. And they're just like talking to him as though we all know who these characters are. So maybe he's the thing, but maybe he's not already a thing.
Maybe. I mean, there's no like, hey, it's you. It's just like, oh, we're here.
Oh, okay.
And then Jessica. Okay, so that's who you play as primarily initially, and you're looking for Chris Redfield,
right? Which is one of the protagonists from the original game, and like Code Veronica, and a bunch of them. But looking for Chris Redfield that's Claire's whole deal in the second Resident Evil Revelation or second Resident Evil game.
So you Jill and Parker go to a cruise ship called the Queen Zenobia, and that's where the majority of the game takes place. You will also eventually play as Chris Redfield. Okay, so sorry. So in the first game, you are with a partner, but you only ever play as one person.
Okay.
So at a time. So you play primarily as Jill when you're on the cruise ship. You will occasionally play as Chris Redfield when they like meet up with you. There's a character named Jessica Sharawat, and you never play as her, but she's always around.
Okay.
As part of the plot. And then there's a couple of times where you play as Parker. But basically the majority of it takes place on this cruise ship called the Queen Zenobia. It's kind of like a ghost ship. You know, there's no crew or anything left.
Mm-hmm.
But it turns out that, surprise, there's a virus.
Of course.
On the cruise ship. The cruise ship itself is actually like a neat way to keep it self-contained so they can reuse the same like environments a lot. And also it kind of has the feel of, you know, the mansion from the original Resident Evil, because you're spending, or I guess a lot of the Resident Evil games, because, you know, the rooms, whatever the state rooms,
sure,
of the cruise ship are adorned very much.
Oh, sure.
Like
so it's like ornamental. And,
yeah.
Do you spend a lot of time in that kind of like crisscrossing over the same area?
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of backtracking.
There's a lot of backtracking in this game. And even when you like go to different time periods or different locations, any location you encounter, you are sure to see at least 2 more times.
Sure. Yeah. That makes sense. So the thought occurred to me that people might not want to have these game stories spoiled for them, but
I feel like both of them have been out for so long. Like the Resident Evil Revelations, the first one came out on the 3DS, was like I think close to launch.
Yeah, it was just about a launch.
So it's been around since like 2012. It's on a lot of platforms. So I think we're going to be speaking fairly freely.
Yeah, I agree. And also, I mean, for as much as I like Resident Evil and enjoy its story, it's nonsense.
Okay, I have to say I have stopped enjoying the story.
Oh, okay.
Like this one reminded me so much a game that I enjoyed, by the way. I played through the campaign. I enjoyed the campaign. Um but the story in this game reminded me so much of the prequels
The
because
Star Wars prequels?
yeah, the Star
Okay.
Wars prequels.
Okay.
Because it's like uh from where the original Star Wars trilogy, like the story and like the adventure in those games,
Yeah, yeah.
to the very like diplomatic,
Oh, really?
focused. Oh, this one is all about like bureaucracy. It's so weird. It's like there's two competing government agencies, one that's bad, one that's good, and it's all about them like trying to like get the upper hand on each other and
First of
double
all,
crossing and triple crosses. And you're like, I don't care about any of this. Remember when this was just about like
shooting zombies.
investigating murders that turned out to be zombies in
Yeah, rural somewhere.
yeah.
Some mountain town. Look, Mark, first of all, we know all government agencies are evil. First of all. Yeah, that's a little bit disappointing. I know this game does have a reputation for being full of that like really crappy Resident Evil voice acting. Can you confirm or deny?
Okay, honestly, the voice acting I didn't think was that bad.
Oh, okay.
I thought the like story that they were delivering was real awful. There's also a character named Raymond. Are you familiar with this guy?
I don't think so.
Okay, he's like he kind of looks like Conan O'Brien. Like he's really tall and lanky. It has
Tyrant?
It almost has
the
to be-
Tyrant?
it almost has to be on purpose. He's really tall and lanky, has shocking red hair
What's his name?
that like swoops. His name is Raymond.
Okay.
Uh,
I'm looking him up on the Resident Evil
yeah,
wiki right now.
trying to remember his last name. Vester?
Raymond Vester.
Vester. He's hideous looking. And he features prominently in the game. But he's another one that I'm like, who? Maybe he's in 5 and I don't really remember the intricacies of the story of 5.
Sure.
But
So,
I don't know.
Okay, so you're spending time on this cruise ship, controlling either Jill or Parker
Or
or
Chris.
Chris, and kind of hopping around through time. But was it fun? Was it scary? Like what?
It wasn't scary.
Okay.
So I feel like once I don't know. It definitely there was one or two moments where like it was very atmospheric, and I
Mhm.
ended up playing mostly on handheld in handheld mode. And part of that was because it looks fine on docked. It looks fine on my TV,
Yeah.
but it looks really good in handheld.
Sure.
It's crazy that this was a 3DS game,
Yeah, I mean that's why is that it's only ever intended to be on an itty bitty screen.
but sometimes you're like, yeah, I get it. Like it feels like a 3DS game that's just been up-resed.
Sure.
But yeah, so I can't even remember where I was going with that.
I think we were talking about like the story, the experience of.
Oh yeah, I had a lot of fun
playing it. Yeah.
Like I enjoyed it. Have you played it at all with the pointer controls? Or I guess like the gyro controls more correctly because it's not really using like pointer or anything.
So in this game,
Mm-hmm.
there was a second where I tried to use them in Revelations 2 and it doesn't it didn't I don't know if I have to like turn them on.
Oh yeah, you have to turn them
You have to
on
turn them
in like
on, okay.
options.
I will because I found myself, I've been playing so much Switch lately that like anytime I'm aiming something, it's become like second nature to me to kind of like just like tilt to fine tune the controls.
And that's what it like initially I thought it was going to be more like Resident Evil 4 style where it's like pointer, but
Yeah.
it's not. It's much more just like an adjustment
Sure.
to like the aiming that you're already doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not really scary cuz these games have become so like military and combat focused
Yeah.
that there's not really room for atmosphere.
Okay, interesting.
Like I never really felt overpowered or sorry, like by enemies.
Oh,
I
sure.
always felt like
you always felt like you were OP.
Yeah.
All right, that's interesting. Revelations 1 plays more like if you had to liken it to an existing or a previously existing Resident Evil, how would you describe it?
I think it's the I would say it's the closest to 5,
Okay.
where like it's more combat focused, but they still have like some limitations, so it's not just a straight up like run and gun.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. Like I'm probably gonna go back and play the first one after I finish two, which I have not yet finished two. But should we use this as a opportunity to pivot to talking about the second game? So the second game was originally released episodically. So you get the game in, they're still like in episodic chunks, but in all you have them all at once. You don't have to wait for them, right? Um, but so the first episode, I'm like in the middle of the second, right? And the first episode starts with you are playing Claire Redfield, and you are joined by Barry Burton's daughter Moira, um, and Moira's like a college student or something, and she is working with Claire for their what's the name of the organization? It's the Terra something, Terra Save. They are in the business of like cleaning up viruses that turn people into zombies. Basically, it's a very niche thing that they do, but they do it all over the world. And so the game starts with them at like a fundraiser gala or something like that, and then like smash cut to they've been kidnapped and they're on an island. And then you spend the first half of this episode as those two characters wandering around this island trying to get free. Obviously, there are zombies. And so like they reach a point where they've put out like a radio message that they need to be rescued, and then the game like cuts entirely, new perspective. Now you are Barry in search of his daughter and Claire on that same island. And right when he gets to the island, he encounters a young girl named Natalia, and everyone that wakes up on this island has a bracelet that is communicating to them from some woman called like a controller or something. So some like ominous sounding title. And there is like a little color code on the bracelet that says like you're calm, scared, infected, and mutant. And the little girl's bracelet is showing the mutant color all the time. So Barry and this little girl, Natalia, are exploring the island, and it's the same space that you were just through, and like all the traps and stuff that you triggered as Claire and Moira are like now traps that you have to like deactivate as Barry. So like all of the little things that you put in place to defend yourself the first time you were through the space are now like against you.
Is that a fun mechanic or is that annoying?
No, it's kind of really cool because like you're playing and you're like, oh, I know this. Like I know where all these things are. And similarly, there were some like weapon upgrade things that I didn't pick up the first time through. That I saw like later as Barry and was like, oh, I can pick this up now. So like, there's a little bit of in Resident Evil 2, you're playing through like the one scenario and you get to a point where you can either pick up like the semi-automatic weapon or the like inventory expander, and you can take both if you want to, or you can leave them both for like the second playthrough person to use. There's a lot of like that kind of thing where it's like I can take this now or leave it for later. But then so just to skip ahead to the end of the first episode, you get to like that same radio tower where Moira put out the SOS call, and Barry plays it, and then like the little audio log is like recorded 6 months, something like that. So like you realize then that so much time has passed since your first set of characters were there. So I haven't gotten to catch back up with Barry and the little girl, but it's cool that like these are also on like two separate like time tracks, sort of like with Barry investigating what happened on the island. I don't know. It's really cool, and the like structure of the game, it encourages you to like go back and replay episodes to like gain more points. Is there like a character upgrade system in the first game?
No.
Okay, so it's not maybe like a character upgrade so much as it is like a universal character upgrade. There's like a skill tree that you spend these like BP battle, maybe they're battle point, who knows, something points, B points, um, where you spend them so that like your characters can use herbs more efficiently. So it's like 110% of what it normally does, or that you have an attack where like as you're running in you use the knife, they like kind of tackle and like use it, and get little like damage boosts to like that sort of stuff, or just like increasing the whatever little abilities. So like as you earn those battle points and as you do each episode better, it gives you a grade based on like how many times you have to retry, like enemies killed, and like healing items used and stuff like that. So it's like constantly grading you and then like giving you the option to go back and like do it again better. I have not as of yet been like driven back to there's something like as I'm playing I just want like the experience of the game. Um, but like I don't know, it's cool as I'm playing to be like, oh, the characters got stronger, they got a little bit better, um, which is not something I'm accustomed to in a Resident Evil. Like you used to just like getting more weapons, you know?
Yeah, that's cool. There's not really anything like that in the first game. The first game is broken up into episodes, and I
Mhm.
think that's like a nod to the fact that it came from the 3DS.
Yeah.
So like to make it a more handheld friendly or
Oh,
like
sure.
portable
Yeah.
friendly experience. And at the end of each like sub chapter and chapter, you get graded
Yeah.
on your accuracy, how many times you died, and completion time, I believe. And it gives you BP, but there's, as far as I can tell, no utility for BP in the campaign itself.
Interesting.
There are like weapon upgrades, but you collect those during your exploration, and then you can like swap them out. But there's no like you don't upgrade characters or like attributes or anything like that. So it sounds like it is too scary. Is it, or is it more atmospheric?
So it's very atmospheric. The first like prison thing that you're in, you're picking up, and this might be true of the first one as well, but like picking up notes and diaries and like drawings from like characters that have been there previously. Yeah, it's like it's totally atmospheric, and like there have been a bunch of times that I have been like scared or like kind of like overwhelmed. There's a part in the like overwhelmed in like a scary kind of way. There is a part in the second episode of Revelations 2 that is basically like the siege on the house in Resident Evil 4 that I just like it was great. I was down to like, 2 shotgun shells and like, you know, just in bad shape. And I had that kind of like desperation moment. It was really exciting and like fun and scary.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah, I think the game's really quite good. And the with the exception of like the story stuff at the beginning, it seems like a relatively straightforward story of just like these people who fight against zombies are kidnapped and they have to fight for their freedom, and Barry fights to save them. Like it's very simple. I'm sure there will be twists in it that make it more ridiculous, um, but like a surprisingly relatable Resident Evil story at that point.
It's interesting because as these games have become, I guess, more combat focused,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't find the combat all that enjoyable.
Sure.
So I mean, I feel like I play a lot of these games for like the atmosphere
Mm-hmm.
and that I don't even know, like that like scared or like overwhelmed feeling.
Yeah.
Um and for me, the first Revelations game puts a lot of emphasis on like uh you're going to enter a new space, and then enemies are going to come like pouring out,
Oh, okay.
and then you are going to kill them in this arena, and then you'll explore some more. And there are certain or like backtrack or like do certain things. And there are certain like areas that break that up that are like a little different. And it's not like Doom or anything. Like it's not uh like literally they're just gonna like keep pouring in until
Right,
you like
right.
hit a certain trigger or something like that. But the first game feels really like combat focused to me, which seems so strange, especially since it started life as a 3DS title.
Right.
Um, but the moments when it is like the best are when you're in like tight confined spaces and you have to like maneuver around them
Mhm.
instead of trying to like engage them in combat. And uh you end up doing that a lot in certain sections because there are rooms when you're trying from like go from one area of the ship to the other. You'll have to go through like a kitchen or something, and then it'll have stacks of shelves, and there'll be a few enemies roaming, and so it's just easier to just like try to weave your way through it
Sure, yeah.
and like dodge them. Uh, and then there's a character named, I think her name is Rebecca, and she's like a researcher that was on the ship or something like that.
Uh-huh.
And she she shows up at various times in the game, and she has like a really powerful attack. And so you basically just like stun her and kill her and then, or stun her and then run away instead of trying to like kill her. And moments like that are the most fun where you're like, oh, this particular enemy, it's a better option for me to run away than it is to attack.
Yeah, sure.
Like that's the most fun when it becomes like a gun heavy like military thing. Like the final boss is just kind of like shoot this chain gun,
Yeah, sure.
right? And just keep doing it. And
Yeah.
that's less fun.
I mean, I think all Resident Evil game, maybe not all, but especially as they get like later in the series, have a problem with endings where it's just like the end of Resident Evil 2, you're just like fighting a giant wall of like flesh, and it's just like, all right, what is this?
And that's also true of like 4, which is my
Yeah,
favorite one, where like the bosses and kind of the further you get into that game, the
yeah,
less interesting it is. It just becomes more. I mean, the final boss you like off with a rocket launcher.
yeah, and I mean that's pretty common. Like that's how you finish off like the tyrant in the original Resident Evil. You like run around on the helipad for like a little bit, hope he doesn't kill you, and then someone throws down the rocket launcher. Um, yeah, I think that Revelations 2 finds a nice balance between the sort of like action focus and being a little bit more atmospheric and like tense. Um, e- whether your main character is Claire or Barry, you always have another character with you who is not fighting, like who doesn't have a weapon. Moira won't carry guns, and the little girl also, is a little girl. So, they both have like sub weapons that like Moira carries a crowbar, which you then also use to like open boxes and stuff. And she'll use that as like a defensive weapon. But, there's always like a little bit of a power imbalance where you're like, this one character has to clear out the room and this other one has to maybe like scope it out a little bit, or, but it's just like limited and vulnerable in that way.
So in Resident Evil, in Revelations 2, it looked like there's a split screen mode
Yeah.
for the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So in the game itself, do you have the option to switch between the two characters?
Yes, on the fly.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
like Resident Evil 5 in that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you just push X in the other character for a little bit, and your companion character like stays with you for the most part, unless you get to a point where they're necessarily separated because like someone can squeeze through and someone else cannot.
I also
Yeah.
think some of my, not even complaints, because again, I enjoyed the game, but uh, feeling overpowered and having like all this ammo and stuff is because I didn't play on the biggest or highest difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you were like really going for that survival horror experience,
Yeah, you think
that's
it's in
how
there
you would
somewhere?
do it.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure it limits your ammo and enemies do more damage and everything like that. So you do have to be more strategic.
Yeah.
Whereas on like normal, it just felt like
You're just mowing them down.
yeah,
Yeah. You want to talk a little bit about the raid mode?
yeah,
So we took the opportunity between our episode recordings to play a little bit of the raid mode. Just the two of us in Revelations 2. Have yet to check it out in the first one. But it the Switch supports a split screen like co-op mode. But it looks like you can also do we didn't totally experiment with all of the options, but it seems like you can do online play with just like randos to do like these little co-op basically like horde mode kind of arena things. And it was super fun.
yeah. I'd say it's a little different from horde mode. Well, I guess not, because horde mode pretty much is just like waves of enemies
Yeah.
coming at you, and that's
Is there a definition of horde mode beyond that?
no,
Okay.
I don't think so.
All right.
So yeah, I guess this does fit the definition. Or I guess only because I think of horde mode as being, I like you're in an arena,
Sure.
and this has a little bit more like exploration, like levels you're going through.
Yeah, that like you clear out one chunk of the arena and then like move on to another set of hallways and rooms and stuff. But we were definitely overpowered in that.
Yeah, and we were just doing like we played the first few levels, and the enemies were
Yeah.
leveling up, but there was at no point where we, like wanted for ammo. There was no point where we wanted for health.
Right. But there is just something fun about like mowing down a bunch of zombies with your friend, right?
Yeah.
I was surprised that the Switch, and I mean, I guess this is a PlayStation 3 game, right? So, last generation hardware, but like the Switch can handle running that split screen version of that, processing it twice, and looked, and played fine. Like there were no frame rate drops or anything like that. Was fun and looked good.
I wonder if it's possible to play online with friends.
So it was unclear to me. It looked like it was you could play online with random people, but there's also like a local option there. So I wonder if you can get two people together with two Switches and play the horde mode or the raid mode in Revelations 2 together, because that I think would be awesome.
Super fun. Also, as much as I enjoyed Revelations, and from what you're saying, like I'm interested in playing Revelations 2. Definitely the staying power of these games seems to be in the raid mode.
Yeah.
Because we just played a little bit, but I was ready to play more, and it has so many customization options.
Yeah,
it seems like limitless.
Like a ton. And yeah, there's a lot of like the progression is in so many different dimensions, right? Like that you unlock these like albums, which are, we think, new weapons and like new upgrades to weapons. But then on top of that and customizing the weapons, you can like you get like skill points to upgrade the abilities of your characters. And emotes, gotta upgrade them emotes.
And you start out with like 6 characters you can choose from, but there's more that are unlockable.
Yeah.
And each character has like different loadouts or things they can carry.
Yeah.
Like you were playing as Hunk and you could have 4 weapons. I was playing as
Wesker.
I was gonna call him Vesper.
No, Raymond Vesper. And you could have 2 weapons.
I could have 2 weapons.
But it looked like you could unlock like those other weapon slots
at higher levels. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, it was just like, I don't know, it was cool to see also the way the game like expressed those characters' personalities like through the gameplay. Everyone has like a close-up like finisher kind of thing when you like stun a zombie, and Hunk like with the zombie on the ground like pulls out a gun and just like, I don't know, it's like straight arm like caps him
like execution style.
Yeah, it is brutal when he does it.
Wexer like curb stomps.
Yeah. So like it's, I don't know, it's weird that like those extreme acts of violence are expressing these characters' personalities, but it does. Yeah, I don't know. I could see spending a lot of time with the raid mode here, especially if like we're playing it together.
Yeah.
Or if any NCSers out there wanted to play with us. I think that would be super fun.
It sounds like, I mean, I enjoyed my time with Revelations. Oh, I just have to say, there's a lot of swimming in this game.
Okay.
Yeah, like
I have encountered no swimming in
different
two.
parts of this cruise ship will flood at different parts of the story, and so you'll have to like swim. I found the swimming controls infuriating. Absolutely hated those portions of the game. But as much as I enjoyed Revelations overall, it sounds like of the two to get, Revelations 2 seems like a much more, I guess, like polished game.
Yeah, I mean, I've been enjoying it a ton so far. I mentioned I picked up the retail copy, and so the retail version of the game just has Revelations 1 on it, and then it comes with a download code for 2. It's not like the cartridge unlocks it; it's an actual code. There's an expiration date on the code, so I have to use it before December 31st, 27.99. Which I thought was amazing. 27.99.
But not the year 2800.
No. If I wait until the year 2800, I am out of luck. I cannot redeem this thing I spent $40 on 800 years ago. Yeah, so weird. Like, you can bring that back. You can say 2500. That's fine. I don't need to have it forever. Yeah, so I think I agree with you that if one of these games is a game to pick up and the other one is a game to not, that probably 2 is where it's at. But again, we've only really had the experience of one of them each, so we may be limited in that. If you've got any experience with either of these games, either as they appear on Switch or elsewhere, please let us know. We're really enjoying them. Would like to know other people's experience. So write into us at Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com, or get us on Twitter or on Facebook. We're at NinCart Society or just Nintendo Cartridge Society. Mark, was there anything else you wanted to add about your experience with Resident Evil Revelations before we get out of here?
No, I'm glad I picked it up. It is interesting to me since I have not played a Resident Evil game for a few years at this point.
Yeah.
How far the series has come from what I think of it as in my head.
Yeah.
And like what a huge change it really was for Resident Evil 7.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, yeah. It seems like this is a few changes back, right? Like, because I feel like you're right, it does feel pretty similar to 5 in terms of the way it controls. But it has a similar, at least number 2 at any rate, a similar like scale aesthetic to like 4 or even like Code Veronica, where things don't get huge and crazy. They get like everything is pretty measured to the point that I've played. Whereas like 6, the characters are like flipping motorcycles and you know what I mean. That the threats and the abilities of the characters all feel more grounded in this.
Yeah, I feel like they definitely tried to thread the needle between like what people expect from classic Resident Evil and the more modern like action focused takes on the game. And I think for the most part, my experience with the first Revelations is that it successfully does so.
Yeah.
If it does one thing, it leans more towards the action part of it.
For sure.
But that's what the series had become at that point.
Yeah. Well, and also like, for as much as we romanticize like old Resident Evil and like that, nerve-wracking feeling of like, oh my God, am I going to make it back to the safe room and use my last ink ribbon to save so I can go to bed tonight and not lose all my progress? Do I want that experience anymore? Not really. Like I still want a game to scare me and have like cool atmosphere and stuff. But like, I'm 35 years old. If I sink an evening into playing a game, I want it to, I don't want to have to play it again, the next night. So some modernization, I guess, is good, is what I'm saying. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the show. Please rate, review, and subscribe and all of that on Apple Podcasts. We love it when you do it. We love it when you do it. Follow us on Twitter and check out the Facebook page. If you like Mark and Mine's opinions, we write about comic books on retconpunch.com. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can find his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Eller saying thanks for listening.
What's a Creative Podcast Network?